104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio this morning for Dark Side of the Stream. Episode 105. My pick this week was Memories of a Murderer, the Nilsen tapes.
Is it memoirs or memories?
Memories.
Memories of a murderer.
Memories of a murderer.
It's once again a whacked out serial killer documentary by us.
It is extremely whacked out and
disturbing.
I didn't know a whole lot about this guy going into it. But like we had done the John Wayne Gacy tapes a few weeks back. And one of the things I was kind of disappointed about was like, there's really not a whole lot of talking from Mr. Gacy himself throughout the documentary. They made it sound like it was going to be his voice.
This one on the other hand was all him.
And the crazy thing about it was like he had a cassette recorder in jail.
Yeah. And a keyboard.
He was talking about smoking weed at one point.
Yeah.
In jail.
He said he
like
had
you
ample
killed
amounts
15
of
guys
weed in jail.
He's just getting weed, smoking weed in jail, recording himself telling his life story. And then at one point he got a synthesizer.
Yeah.
And would make little synth songs.
Get stoned and he makes songs in prison. Yeah.
So he tells his whole life story, ends up sending it to some reporter. And I think the reporter was the one who ended up selling the rights to this thing.
Yeah.
Later on down the line, they wrote a book about it. He died. Dennis Nilsen is who I'm talking about in 2018, after being in prison for a long time. But basically, it all started with clogged toilet. Whole story, as some of these do.
Again, another serial killer burying people in the floorboards of his house. And he was a former policeman. It's really weird that there's so many of these.
It is very weird, but it also fits into that realm of years where it was the late 70s, early 80s, where we were very, very active serial killers all across the world.
It was like the thing to do.
If that's what you want to call it. Mainly, in my opinion, the thought has always been there was the lead poisoning idea is that there was a ton more lead in gasoline, and that led to people with development.
Everybody going cuckoo,
lose their mind. This guy more than likely was abused by his grandfather.
Well, okay, that was the first question. I kind of watched it in a days after doing some shows. I was tired. One thing that stood out, was this dude's grandpa banging him?
Abusing him, yes. And the crazy thing is, he talked about him like he was everything. He took him with him everywhere. He was just amazing. His grandfather was a fisherman, had a heart attack while on a boat at the age of 62. He went to view the casket, and he asked his mom, where'd he go? And he goes, he went to a better place. And he said that in his mind, his grandpa took him everywhere. Why didn't he take him to this better place? And so his idea in his mind, he says his idea of love and death kind of fused at that point. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I will say that definitely had a profound effect on him, on who he would be as he got older. And the crimes that he would commit. But yes, it was real little because he didn't really talk about it. It was kind of like
glazed over it.
It was kind of like matter of fact.
Just like, this was happening too.
Yeah, he definitely was.
Is that what I just heard?
Yeah.
The second thing I heard.
Wait, hold on. Let's get to your second question. Next, Dark Side of the Stream continues in a few minutes. On 104.7 The Cave. .7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 105, Memories of a Murderer. Dennis Nilsen, who was active in the late 70s, early 80s in the London area.
Like in the gay club scene, right? He would pick up straggler guys.
Yeah, so this is very much similar to what happened with John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
You had a very homophobic society. When men who were gay and were out about being gay would go to the police and say, I was attacked. They were like,
who cares?
Whatever.
Yep.
No big deal.
Yeah.
So they actually had, I think, 5 or 6 incidences where men went into the police and said, this guy did it. Okay. And at one point,
buy it.
They never bought it, except for one detective who actually served with this guy in the police force and already knew he was a weird dude. Didn't know that he was gay.
No, they just thought he was a weird cat.
He just knew he
didn't
was
make the cut.
strange.
He ended up quitting or getting fired. He didn't make the cut.
Yeah. And so this investigator goes to the prosecuting attorneys and is like, hey, he pretty much tried to kill this kid. The kid ended up jumping out of a window to get away from him.
Didn't put charges.
And they were like, nah, let it go.
Former police officer, it's a bad look for us.
He was so mad.
They could have stopped it right there. They probably could have squashed it.
No, all these kids would have lived more than likely. I mean, he could have went to jail for life for attempted murder just with that one incident. And then we're talking about 5 or 6 times the cop said, "Meh, whatever."
And it's just a reoccurring theme, man. And then they stacking bodies under the house, runs out of room, stacks bodies in the backyard.
Well, he did. There was one kid that said that the only reason he survived, and this was also the one kid who actually helped the prosecutors. Because they were using the insanity defense, but they had to prosecutors had to prove premeditation, and this kid who survived it was actually the one that helped prove premeditation based on the interactions he had while he was literally trying to kill him. But the crazy thing is that they let it go, and it wasn't just gay guys who would go after. He was going after homeless kids too. The media, as they do, chose to pick one route and go with it. So
he was going after people that nobody would miss them.
Yeah.
Which is,
and as a former police officer, he had a pretty good idea where they hung out. But we will talk about one of the most gut-wrenching stories from this documentary next.
Well, is it the same one that I have the question?
I don't know. Did we ask your second question yet?
No.
I screwed that up. Sorry.
It's all right. No. We had to get some of the story out there.
Yeah. So what's the second question?
Did I hear it correctly? He kills a dude and leaves the dude sitting in a chair for a couple days next to him, and then covers the dude in talcum powder and pounds one out on the guy.
That was like the first or couple that he did. Yeah, that we get that now. Yeah, that he would basically keep the bodies for a very long time.
Watch TV with
them. He would basically like immortalize them in their youth, if you will, and until the smell and stuff got too much and whatever.
Dude,
it was.
That's some
very
stuff.
Messed up.
That's some whacked out stuff.
He would keep them again, and then slowly dismember
I heard
them,
that correctly.
Throw them in the floorboards, and then eventually just throw them down the toilet, which is what ended up leading him to be caught. And that's the thing is, they said in the documentary, had that toilet not been clogged at the flat he ended up getting busted at, he would have continued on until he got stopped, which is crazy. And that's after the 6 incidents where people were like, "Hey, this guy tried to kill me." You're gay. It doesn't matter. It's crazy. We'll get to more Dark Side of the Stream next on 104.7 The Cave. "104.7 The Cave." Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 105, discussing Memories of a Murderer, the Nilsen tapes. So the craziest story I heard in this was one of the survivors who came out, who said that he knew he was gay at a young age. Family wasn't really cool with it. And obviously in the late 70s and early 80s in UK, extremely homophobic society. And so he ran away at the age of 14 and he was in some small town in the UK, ended up getting to London with like 10 pounds in his pocket.
Barely
ends up sleeping in a carport, discovers that there are boys on the street selling themselves, and at the young age of 14 gets into prostitution. That just can you imagine 14 years old sleeping behind a car, and then you're like trying to figure out how to find money, and some older guys like, "Hey, I got away from you.
I got to hustle for you."
Oh my God. So he ended up going into the clutches of Dennis, and Dennis somehow he gets away from him too.
He got away.
Yeah, thank God. But yeah, that one was, it's horrific what happened to his victims, but the hearing that story about how one of his victims who he survived got involved in this, just it reminds you of that stuff is still.
And you listen to him talk,
now.
He's kind of like that Hannibal Lecter character in Silence of the Lambs.
He actually hung up a poster of Hannibal Lecter in his jail cell.
Yeah.
Which is just blows
He's very
mind.
chill, just talks about matter-of-factly about
he was a sociopath, he was a psychopath. The cop that tried to bust him the first time definitely should have been able to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of balls got dropped, and the cops were wearing egg on their face. They definitely were. And it's horrific that this was able to go on as long as it did when the warning signs were all out. But just like with John Wayne Gacy, you had a guy come in and say, "This guy almost killed me." Whatever.
Yeah.
You guys are just having a love story. Whatever, man. Get out of here.
Drunken night.
So he goes and finds a dude on his own, and that's how they catch him.
See?
It's just like sometimes I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me. Justice is a tough thing, but you just see miscarriages of justice, which just blows my mind. But inevitably, a clogged toilet would lead the police to his second flat. They find a bunch of human remains underneath in the sewer. They go to his former flat. They might find a bunch of human remains underneath the floorboard. They also find a bunch in his backyard because he burned them. They find trash bags full of bodies in his house currently that he lived in. That's the other thing is like he would lure these dudes back to his apartment, like they drink and they'd hang out, whatever. And they'd like, you guys, we want to go back to the flat and drink and listen to music. Cool. Sounds good. They get there. How could you not, like, you walk into that place and have the smell and be like, hold on, I left something outside, and just get the F out of there.
Yeah, that's maybe a good red flag. If you go to somebody's house after hours and it smells like dead bodies, try to leave.
We're saving lives here at Dark Side of the Stream with your tips to survive serial killers. We'll get to our conclusion next on 104.7 The Cave. .7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back one more time in the studio for Dark Side of the Stream, episode 105, discussing Memories of a Murder, the Nilsen tape. So how many cassette tapes would you give
I was
this?
Say how many talcum.
Nah, no, it's not
how
good.
many talcum covered.
There's some people eating
bodies.
Cheerios right now, man. Come on.
I'm gonna just go 2.5.
Yeah, so 2.5.
Yeah, it didn't rewrite anything for me. It was just kind of.
It's like the UK version of John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah,
this guy just
stayed like this. It didn't get really crazy. There didn't any wacky twist.
You knew it was coming. Well, in this case, the story had been out for 40 years, right? So
yeah,
it's not like
this one it was just kind of slow, and it was weird for sure. There's some weird stuff that went down in there, but I'm gonna go 2.5.
I kind of looked into this guy's life afterward. He had an insane life. He served in the military and did some really crazy stuff in Germany, and like his development. It's another classic example of someone who is something and knows that they are something. In this case, a homosexual man, and he fights the urges and ends up becoming a killer. John Wayne Gacy, same thing. These people had just been like, you know what? I am gay. I love men.
Go with the flow.
Just do it.
Yeah.
How many lives could have been saved?
True.
Right?
True.
So we come back to this again, which is if you are something, be that person.
Yeah.
And love yourself. There are people out there that'll love you for it. It doesn't, screw it. Screw it, society says. Be who you are and be proud of it.
Be who you are.
That's right. You're looking at two guys right now who exactly who they are being, who they are right now.
Stuck in the 80s. Who cares?
I give it about a 3. Like you said, it wasn't
Yeah.
a story that got retold. It wasn't something crazy. I did like the fact that it was short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah, I did like that it was just one episode, like one long one.
Couldn't believe it was the same producer that did Don't F with Cats.
I was really had high hopes for it because of that.
But
it fell short for me.
Kind of read like a book. All right, Jay, it's your turn for 106. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, well, I was on the fence with another one, but then I watched one over the weekend. I finished it, and so Sins of Our Mother.
Oh, the crazy lady with the cult.
Crazy lady
her kids and went
goes
to Hawaii.
Gets married. Yeah, cult later. Another Mormon tale.
Another chick that could have been in a Machine Gun Symphony concert watching Jay.
For a while, she was a pretty girl.
We'll get into that next week. Stream the show online, 1047thecave.com. On our YouTube channel, you can stream the podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app. As always, I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens reminding you we watch movies, so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.